Intifada is going to go up and eventually it's going to hit violence, and that's what has happened. But I want to talk to the root of what I believe is behind all of this, all of the rhetoric, all of the chanting. What we're seeing right now, and I want to talk to this from the counterterrorism space, isn't just chaos on campus, Kellyanne. This is called fifth generation warfare. No missiles, no soldiers. This is ideological infiltration, psychological manipulation, and algorithmic warfare. And this is how modern enemies of America fight. They're not storming our borders. They are hijacking our platforms. Iran, China, other hostile actors are physically weaponizing social media, which has radicalized the youth and created this destabilized movement throughout our culture. This is actually what's happening, and it's turned Americans against each other from within. And that's what this anti-Semitism is. This is where it's coming from, and that's the root of these protests. This is the modern battlefield.
Scary.
Thanks me for having me on tonight. And really, I think Aaron is right. This is the greatest subversive influence campaign that this country has ever seen. We have a major problem of terror, pro-terror radicalization happening on our campuses. We have foreign funding terror cells. We have judges preventing the Trump administration from enforcing the law, from getting rid of people who are here illegally. Excuse me. And what we saw last night is a direct result of the unchecked spread of this blood libel. These two young people who were celebrating life, who were about to get engaged, were gunned down in cold blood. And you know what, Kellyanne? It could have been me. It could have been any of my friends or colleagues. Just last night, I was at a fundraiser in Miami for Zaka, the nonprofit organization that is tasked with picking up the dead body parts and the blood of Jews murdered and slaughtered and killed and burned alive on October the 7th. It was the same group picking up the blood on the streets of D.C. after this attack. Because whether you're Jewish in Israel or you're Jewish on the streets of America or Paris or London, it doesn't matter. This is Jew hatred. It is not political. And when Pam Bondi was asked this morning, what is the motive of the shooters, though we don't know, he said it himself. He said he's doing this for Gaza, yes, to free Palestine. He says it himself. What pro-Palestinian advocacy is genocidal Jew hatred. And what is so chilling, and I'll end with this, is that Yaron's last post was calling out the United Nations for spreading blood libels. They say that this was a lone shooter. It wasn't. He had co-conspirators, everyone in the mainstream media, everyone at the United Nations, every single Ivy League professor, every social media influencer and left-wing politician that's been spreading blood libels, untruths to dehumanize Jews, to delegitimize Israel, is responsible for the death of these two young people. And only President Trump and God can stop this. And we have to support everything he is doing in the Department of Homeland Security, and especially the Justice Department, which, by the way, just filed a statement of interest in the Lawfare Project's lawsuit against the City University of New York, because this is not free speech. When speech turns into assaults, harassment, threats, actions, violations of civil rights, and ultimately death, it is not protected in this country.
Correspondent Alistair Bunkle now, quoting Tom Fletcher, the UN humanitarian chief, who said that 14,000 babies are going to die in 48 hours if food doesn't reach them. The UN has already admitted there is no evidence for that. The UN spread a hoax. Mr. Fletcher made the number up. The IPC had previously said that 14,000 children may suffer malnutrition in the space of a year if food doesn't reach them. He somehow made children babies and said that they were going to die, not be malnourished, and said it was going to happen in 48 hours rather than in a year. I think Mr. Fletcher needs to resign. He needs to apologize for sparking a media panic across the world based on absolute misinformation, and all media channels need to retract it. The BBC has already done that. Now, as for the question of Britain, France, and Canada, all we need to know about that is that Hamas has praised Britain, France, and Canada for their decision. And I hope that being praised by the terrorist army that launched the murderous attacks of October 7th gives Mr. Lamy and other foreign secretaries food for thought. The reason that Hamas is praising Britain is because it thinks Britain has thrown it a lifeline. Hamas is pro-Lamy because it thinks Lamy is pro-Hamas. Hamas thinks that this pressure is going to force Israel to end the war that Hamas started, with Hamas still in power. And if Western countries want to use their leverage properly in order to end this war, they should have one demand against the Hamas regime. It needs to lay down its arms, release the hostages, and this horrible war they started on October 7th, 2023 can finally end.
Call it as I see it. The West is weak. They're weak against this fusion of these Marxists and these Islamists. They're spending hundreds of billions of dollars in our country and throughout Europe. Qatar is number one. Communist China is number two. That's not a mistake. That's not a coincidence. They're trying to destroy us from within. President Trump talks about the enemy within. This is the enemy within. We see it. There's a Kristallnacht taking place in our country every day and throughout Europe every day. Jews are not safe in every capital in Europe, and now they're not safe in our capital. Now, we always are sort of behind Europe in its decline over a period of years. We need to learn and see what's taking place. This isn't about free speech, so the radical libertarians, in the face of this onslaught, would have us commit suicide. This is being funded by Qatar and other countries. There is a funding network. There are more Islamist front groups in this country, terrorist front groups in this country. They multiply like rabbits. Congress is not doing enough to stop this. I know the administration is doing yeoman's work, unlike the prior administration. This is what happens when you have open borders and unfettered and unvetted immigration, particularly from the Middle East. Our courts are not capable by ideological and administrative processes to deal with. In fact, they are obstructing efforts by this administration to deport the enemy, and they are the enemy. They're not an adversary. They're not a bunch of punks just with big mouths. They're marching through the streets like no Nazis ever have, like no Klansmen ever have in our country, calling for the destruction of the United States of America, the overthrow of the West, burning the American flag, chasing Jewish students on college campuses, threatening elderly Jews who hold signs on the streets peacefully, attacking our synagogues. Now, I say this to my fellow Americans. Is this what we want? Is this who we are? Because the ruling class is letting us down. Seal the damn borders, which is what President Trump is doing. Stop every damn penny coming into this country from these terrorist states. I don't care if they put smiles on their faces and hold seminars or whatever the hell they're doing. They're the enemy. They're the enemy. They funded 9/11. 9/11 wasn't even about Jews or Israel. It's about us. They killed over 2,000 of our people. Let the Israelis win their war against Hamas. Stop holding them back. They killed over 1,200 of their people in the most heinous ways, so horrific that the videos haven't been released on any single cable or network television show. That's how horrible it is. If you want to act like a subhuman, you need to be treated like a subhuman. These terrorist organizations, they don't think like we do. They don't think like the West. They see weakness because there is weakness. They've all but destroyed our Ivy League schools, and they're working now in K through 12. What are we going to do? Yell the First Amendment? Free speech? What are we going to do? Allow them to keep pouring money into our country, buying sporting events, buying politicians, buying businesses, and then pretend when they put smiles on their faces and they're driving around in their Mercedes-Benz that they aren't the terrorists that they are? How many more reports have to be published about the amount of money that's being poured into this country by these terrorist states like Qatar, like Iran? We can allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon? The president says no. Isn't it time that the entire nation says no, rather than a debate on whether we can manage a nuclearized Iran? They want to destroy us. They've tried to assassinate our president. How many more signals do they need to send us? What else do they need to do? They are eating away at our country from within. Europe has basically been conquered. We need to put our foot down. These two precious human beings executed in cold blood. And let me tell you something, Brian. In 3 days, we'll be on to the next subject. Never even think about them again. They took hostages. They raped them. They murdered them. They starved them. They tortured them. They executed them. They're still in, 20 of them, in tunnels in Gaza. And the Israelis are being told to back off. Our media uses Hamas statistics, Hamas lies, to turn the world against the Jews in Israel and against the United States, to affect public opinion. The same American media that lied about Biden, lie about these terrorist regimes and what's taking place in Gaza, and our Congress, the Bernie Sanders, the Tlaibs, the Omars, the AOCs, they have a lot to answer for with this Marxist Islamist crap. And the fact of the matter is, they boycott the leader of Israel, Netanyahu, because they hate Israel. They say, oh, we don't mind Israel, it's Zionism we oppose. Zionism is the establishment of the state of Israel. It's the only indigenous people on the face of the earth that are now allowed to be indigenous. So we have to have a discussion in this country, but I'm not a rabbi and I'm not a diplomat. So I'll pray and I'll talk, but it's time for action.